Good morning. It is 9:01 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Julie Kay. Thanks so much for being up with us this morning. We're going to get right to what everyone is paying attention to, the fact that it is cold, at least for me. Chris, I'm very cold.
See, and this is somebody that came from Michigan.
That's why I left.
What happened to you?
I
Or were you always like this?
I spent 2 summers here and I've gotten weak. I don't want to be chilly.
That's actually about the time, because I remember, because I came from Flint and you came from Grand Rapids, right? When I first came here, I laughed at all these Carolinians. So I was like, haha, I scoff at your 50s and 30s. And now I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's going to be in the 50s.
I know, I have a jacket on my lap right now.
Oh, now
I'm inside.
No, I understand. My whole family pretty much lives with blankets on their laps. So it's like a retirement home. I also like to do it too, so I'm also with that. So welcome to the Shane Mulcahy, best after the age of 70. But you were mentioning how chilly it was, and this graphic shows it all. The coldest low of the season, officially 51 degrees. Before it was 52, splitting hairs. But the last time we hit 52, and I think it was 53, that happened in October 3rd and 4th. The big difference is as we quickly drop down to that number and we ramp right back up. Now, we've been sitting at pretty much the 51 to 54 range for the last 6 hours, so that really settles in. But I want to bring this back. Julie and I were asking an interesting question. I said, oh yeah, it's cold, but what do you think the coldest temperature that Charlotte has ever recorded? So we're going to open that up to everyone. I want you to guess as well. I have a graphic that's going to follow this. Ooh. So Julie, you've had time to think. This has happened 3 times in Charlotte history, dating back to 1879. Okay.
Me answering this question was also my idea.
Yeah, it was your idea.
So there's no one's fault but my own.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
this is like pure temperature, not a feels like.
Yep. Pure temperature, actual air temperature. Do you want me to give you a range?
No.
Okay. There it is. I like the confidence.
8 degrees.
All right. The hint is there is a minus involved.
Oh, no.
There is a minus involved.
-8.
Okay.
Does it involve a Christmas Eve? For a particular reason?
Very close, but the answer is -5. So that's not too bad. But then I believe it was, this is the one you're looking for. It was December 30th, 1880. Do you remember that? It was a good year.
Back in the day.
I remember it really well.
Those were the good days.
So I guess it would be the eve of New Year's Eve.
I was thinking that Christmas Eve from 4 years ago when we had like the power outages. 'cause
Oh,
it was
yeah.
so cold.
It was really cold then, but I think that we only hit wind chills in the negatives, not really close to this. But yeah, the last time we had -5 was 1985, January 21st, -5.
And let's keep it that way.
Yeah, let's keep it that way. We haven't done it in quite some time. Actually, there was a couple of years that we even struggled getting down into the teens. So I like this. But great question, Julie. This is what it is. Especially people come up to me all the time and ask weather questions, and then they immediately apologize. Don't. I apologize for you because you're going to get way too much weather than you actually asked for. So I love your questions. So always write into me. We can answer it right here on the Impact Stream. Always. All right. So what else do you want to talk about? Talk about this big bad low that's going to plague the Carolinas?
Yes.
Okay.
How
Here's a
long is this
live
going
look
to
at
last?
Charleston to help set you guys up.
Ooh,
that's
ominous
spooky.
seas. Well, first off, I forget the man from the Weather Channel that we had an interview with, or at least a snippet from.
Justin Michaels.
That's right, Justin Michaels.
Justin Michaels was out on the Outer Banks yesterday on
Yeah.
Impact
Oh,
Weather.
wow.
He said something that kind of blew my mind, that just pretty much from the Aaron event alone, that we had lost 140 feet around that. That's crazy for me to think about. And what I'm most concerned about, and James, also the proud father of the Carolina Weather Group, so he is as close to a meteorologist as you possibly can be, but you didn't have to weather 4 years at a university for it.
Yeah,
But
I don't call myself a meteorologist because you did the math and the physics, and that sounds scary.
They have
No,
to
I-
take calculus. It's
And
real
calculus,
serious.
Yeah, that was.
I now, as I'll take my weather sword, I now announce
Oh, thank
you
you.
honorary weather man or
appreciate
meteorologist. No, but the main point that we're making here is he said 140 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I looked into this deeper. Since 1987, parts of the Outer Banks have lost up to over 675 feet of their beach and shoreline. Now, that's not everywhere. That's only certain parts. Now, some fare a little bit better close to Nags Head and Corolla. But if you really think it's that thin little river around Buxton, close to Hatteras, that has the worst. And Rodanthe, for example, and I know there was a book that was based in there, but they're losing 15 feet of shoreline every single year. So I looked deeper into the USGS to actually see some of these stats, and it's just absolutely staggering what we have overall. So that's my biggest concern, because Aaron was about 250 to 300 miles away offshore. Now, it was a big, bad hurricane, so it was causing a much bigger swell, because that literally picks up all the water and it throws it towards the shoreline. But this is an actual low-pressure system that is going to be moving inland. So that's one thing that we're really looking at. It's going to be a decent amount of rainfall that's associated with it. So let's roll tape. Okay, let's bring it back home. We're going to talk about our forecast in the near term, and then we're going to wrap in what's happening across the Carolinas. So your WCNC tower camera, not the most beautiful one that we've seen, because here cometh the clouds. And I'm only talking like that because it is week 2 of the Renaissance Fair. So keep that in mind. Renaissance Festival. And the thing that's going to happen is I think we're going to see most of the rain that's going to be Saturday evening into Sunday morning. So even if it starts to break up on Sunday, if you've been out there, it gets muddy. So keep that in mind. No white tennies at the Renaissance Festival, nor should you at all. But we keep these clouds around really today through the weekend. Current temperatures, we have gained 3 degrees compared to our low, our temperature that we had just about an hour ago. And then our future cast, this is what I'm going to get right to. We have seen a big change compared to what I was talking about, say, yesterday during our newscast. The change is that low pressure system that is going to be a big deal for the Outer Banks is actually trending a little bit further towards the west. So that's going to bring us more rain here in the Charlotte area. So this right here is the worst case scenario that I can find really for rain, but it's a good possibility. So what I want to say is I want you to expect what I'm about to show you, but I want you to maybe be hopeful if you have any plans that it pushes a little bit further east, because even though this isn't a named storm, it still should be treated as one, because we're going to have wind gusts that are going to be up to about tropical storm strength for the Outer Banks, but then it also kind of has that wobble that these systems typically have. So today, I think at most you see a sprinkle, no big deal. Now by tomorrow, we see a little bit of green, starting to creep in. So I think we're dry in the morning. So if you have any plans, like us personally, we're going apple picking. Super excited about it.
What a fun fall plan.
No, thank you. Yeah, which, by the way, if you want to go apple picking, you have to do it in the weekdays because they're sold out. on the weekends.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that's how popular this is because you have to buy time slots. So if you all was like, oh, I want to go out picking the weekend, do it during the weekdays because I have some great sunny days for you. You'll see it on the 7-day forecast.
to know.
So we booked this about a month ago, and we'll see how the weather is going to be. But the good news is we're going in the morning. For the afternoon, rain starts to creep in. But I really want people to note that our biggest impacts that I'm really looking out for you is during your Saturday evening into the early morning hours on Sunday. At that point, we're seeing really widespread rain, and check it out, we're even seeing some heavier rain showers, and then after that it's on and off, on and off, on and off. So I'm gonna slow that down for you, but first I wanted to go to this graphic. Sorry, you don't know what I'm dealing with. It's very tiny windows, so it's tough for me to see. All right, so this is our weather impact window. So not weather alert because this is not life-threatening for us here. It'll be weather alert certainly further off towards the east, but the time that I think you're gonna have the most impactful weather to your commute, to what you're doing, starts really as early as 7 o'clock during your Saturday evening. At that point, the rain, I think, starts getting heavy and steady. Also, the winds are starting to pick up. I think we could have wind gusts as high as 30 to 35 miles per hour heading into your Sunday morning. Again, what I'm showing you is the worst case scenario because I usually like you to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. The best case scenario is you don't see really any rain and we have less gusty winds to about 20 to 25, but also we need the rain. So this would actually be really a good scenario. And plus, I want to watch football all day, and the game starts at 9:30 on Sunday, and it's really looking like it's going to go my way. So I'm going to show you that it's really for this coming weekend. We have 71-70 before that sunshine starts to move back in, and it really turns out to be a great forecast overall. Okay, so I'm going to rewind. Again, tiny windows. Thank you for bearing with me. But let's go back to your Saturday. So Saturday evening, as I mentioned, it really starts to spread out, as you can see here. So this is right around midnight. I think really either side of midnight looks to be the worst. Once you get to around sunrise on Sunday morning, we're starting to see a big breakup. I think that means that there's a lot of dry air starting to work its way into these bands. That means less and less rain heading in the afternoon, but it does look like there's enough flow out of the northeast and moisture that's going to be driving in scattered rain showers. So I stopped at 1 o'clock for a specific reason. A lot of not just Panthers fans, but Cowboys fans. This is one of the most popular games that happens on the slate for the Panthers when the Cowboys are in town. Steelers, I think, are number 2 just because of how big their fandom is. There is a chance for rain, and likely you're already going to have a wet seat. So what I always do for these type of events is I bring a small towel with me and put it in my pocket. Good way to dry the seats, or you can just be wearing a poncho and just note that you're going to get wet. But it's not just a rain. It's a cold rain because the temperature is going to be in the 60s. So I need everyone to dress accordingly. Yeah, you will be miserable if you do not have some sort of water-resistant thing and you are just sopping soaked because it's also going to be breezy as well. So you'll have a wet wind chill as well. But then once you get into the evening, things really start to break up. And this is a huge difference compared to what we just saw a day ago. So that is going to be the major change and the major impact that we see here in the short term. Now, as far as our winds go, technically it's going to be a strong breeze. One of my favorite scales in all of meteorology is the Beaufort wind scale, brought to us by Sir Francis Beaufort. And what he did was he analyzed different wind ranges on how they affected either the water, the waves, sailing, or the everyday. So an example is whenever you have a strong wind, you can have large branches in motion and umbrellas don't really work too well. So keep that in mind. I think the windiest period for that is going to be on Sunday morning. Again, that's why we're a little bit more weather impact heading into your Sunday morning and the overnights on Saturday as well. Now, the Carolina coastline, that's what we want to head back to. Honestly, I'm super concerned just because we've talked about for so long about the near misses that these houses are falling into the ocean. And actually, let's go full, James. I understand the reason why this is happening, but it breaks my heart that we're just letting all this debris and houses fall into the ocean, broken glass. And the reason why is because I think the state offered up to a 40% reimbursement, but they can't claim insurance on these houses until they physically fall into the water.
Wow.
So what's happening is people are actually waiting for this natural cause to happen. So they need this to happen so they can cash their check in on the houses. And I totally understand if you have $1 million property, you got to do it. But it's also a sad situation because think of all the sea creatures that are out there, and we're seeing more and more of these.
I didn't know about that there were so many. I mean, you know about insurance red tape in general, but that is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's been happening more and more, and it's a lot of people don't realize that. And this is actually something I just learned this year too, Julie. And I think it's just kind of it's life. It's the nature of the game. But I wish that there was just something, and this is just my heart and the environmentalist in me, that I wish that we could almost just take the houses down before they all have already fallen into the ocean, because it's the inevitable now. If we're losing 15 feet per year and we lost over 100 feet in certain parts of the Outer Banks, it's never a good situation. All right, so anyways, the reason why we're going to see this is actually technically a nor'easter. Now, a nor'easter, when I was a kid, I thought living in the Northeast, it's because we're getting pummeled by this thing in the Northeast. It actually has to do with the wind flow. So what's actually happening here is you have winds that are flowing around a low pressure system. If you draw your finger around that, that is a counterclockwise motion, so that brings a stronger wind out of the Northeast. And also, the big difference here is a nor'easter can be just as powerful as a hurricane. I think one of the best examples we have is the reason why it's not just called Hurricane Sandy, it's called Superstorm Sandy, is because Sandy was a hurricane, and then eventually turned over to more of a synoptic scale nor'easter, where it got intensified with the jet stream and fronts that turned into its own system. So they're also not as pretty to look at. That's the reason why you're seeing this thing just pretty raggedy all over the place. But then since it isn't really a tight circulation, it's spreading out the rain a lot more. So that's why you're seeing a lot more coverage across the Carolinas in general. You're seeing some fronts that are attached, and it's really a deep low pressure system for this type of setup, and that's why you're seeing some wind gusts possibly getting up to about 60 miles per hour. This, I think, is going to cause a lot of power outages along the shoreline. Highway 12 will be closed, and the overwash that we're going to have with this system is going to be extensive, because during Aaron, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Do you by any chance remember the footage of what we had for overwash, my friends, from Aaron along the shorelines?
Do I remember the footage or how much?
Yeah, but how much? Like, cause
You're correct that they had to close NC-12, which is, for viewers who don't know, just like that one road in and out along the Outer Banks.
One road.
Washes over. I'll pull a live camera up.
I believe it was very similar to this, but I think this will be worse as far as erosion goes, because think about it. Most of the Outer Banks is just sand. So when you have big time water, and then also these have poles as well, those waves are taking the sand away, and that's why we're losing so much. But the high impacts that we have here is the Outer Banks, the overwash up to 3 to 5 feet. Now, that means they're going to be coming over the banks. You're going to have just as much of a situation, and this is going to happen really over almost a couple-day period, and then winds over 50 miles per hour on top of that can sometimes make the waves a lot higher. This is not a tropical storm, but the problem is, if this was Tropical Storm Karen, well, first off, the internet would break. Karen did form over the northern Atlantic, and she is not leaving a bad Yelp review, so good news there. But this storm doesn't have a name. It's just a nor'easter, but can have the same impact. So that's one of the problems here, that people would pay more attention if it actually was a tropical storm. Here's an awesome shot. Way to go, James. So these are different shots here along Highway 12, and I recognize a few of these. Some of these are right around Buxton, I believe.
Yep.
And physically, I remember when Aaron rolled by, again, this was not a landfall. This was just a mist storm, but it still was substantial. It was a little bit close to the United States compared to closer to Bermuda, but there was a few of those shots that literally were covered in sand because all the overwash from the water came on. I think we're going to see that again. So come Monday when we're here on the stream, we're going to be talking about Highway 12 likely closed. We're going to talk about more houses falling into the ocean. If they don't, I would be surprised, because one shot that they showed on the Weather Channel with Jeremy was substantial. It like almost was leaning. So
I have that home right here.
do you? Okay,
I think you're talking about.
let's see.
Hang on. So this is debris from a previous home that collapsed there along the coast.
And this is my problem. I wish that all wasn't going into the
that
ocean.
one. This house.
This one right here. Yeah, see, it's leaning. Like, look, I would not go on the porch. And also, a lot of these are party events for some kids. They go out into this, is where, hopefully not in conditions like this. But yeah, look at that. Yeah, that thing's just ready to go.
Looks like a cartoon. It's almost so.
It does. Like I think I drew this when I was 5, where it's not proportional and everything. But there's a bunch of these. But also, one person asked me last week, And it said, these houses keep falling on the ocean. Why do they build them so close? Well, a lot of these, if you look at the architecture, were likely built in either the late 80s or maybe early 90s, around that time frame. The beach and the shoreline in some spots was 600 feet out.
Wow.
So now that's all come up. So that's been the problem. And there are several areas, like I mentioned, close to Corolla is a little bit better. It's a little bit thicker, better conditions. They don't have the harsh, really ocean environments in some parts of that. But it's really sad to see that we are losing parts of the Outer Banks. And this event is going to wash even more of it out.
That's just, the footage is already so upsetting. I know that some of those, like, just like that, we talked about the insurance red tape that I didn't know about. I guess that there's some silver linings that people are paying attention now. I've seen these clips everywhere, not just local news. I'm seeing it all over national news. And so hopefully people are paying more attention. Sad that it's come to this, though.
100%. And I will say, and this is just one thing I hope, but you know, the law of averages, the Outer Banks cannot stand to take a direct hit from a major hurricane.
Yeah.
Like, and history will tell that it could happen again. But at this stage, if we're getting weaker tropical storms, if we're getting hurricanes hundreds of miles out in the shoreline that is taking feet, even over 100 feet away from that, there are parts of the Outer Banks that can't take this. So I'm luckily this is a little bit weaker end, but it's kind of a sad story here in North Carolina to see that literally part of our state is being ripped back out to sea.
It's hard to come to terms with.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to end on such a serious note, but that's just my heart. But let's go bring up the 7-day forecast again, because we got sunshine on the back end of it.
You know what? People need to know. It's a good thing you're mentioning. People need to know.
It's true, and see, it's a tough conversation, because you are going to see some of those videos. Because every person that I've watched the video of the house falling into the ocean. It sparks a discussion, like you had said, but it's also jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
And it is also fascinating. I would like to know, how many other states build their houses on stilts like this?
Well, even just like, I didn't know before I moved here that those were, I guess, real.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of them before. I was like, there's no way
Yeah.
there's no way those are still up. And I didn't understand why, and now I do. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
It's just, it looks, especially that one we saw, it looks unsafe.
And you ever have to think about it, the best way that I can put it without getting in trouble is North Carolina literally sticks its derriere out into the Atlantic. So it's actually a surprise that you do not have more of these bigger storms that are out there. But it literally is a chain of sand. So and that's the little bit weaker spot. So this is something that we have to expect. That's why Highway 12 is constantly being repaired by this. But one last little ending stat that we're seeing here with all the different shots here on Highway 12. This hurricane season is really interesting. I was digging into the stats that the amount of times that we've had our first ever landfalling hurricane, because we have not had a landfalling hurricane. The first time that we have ever had our first landfalling hurricane in October or later has only happened 6 times, dating back for about almost 200 years of data. So only 6 times that's happened. So that means the history's on our side to actually, for us to have not have a landfalling hurricane. But it's been 34 times in history that we haven't at all had a landfalling hurricane. So this could be 35 the way things are trending. But I jinx everything, so I hope that that was not a jinx.
Knock
So we'll
on
see.
wood.
Not on way.
Actually, I do have a good note to end on.
What's that?
I had a good time with the Panthers game.
Did you?
It was
Okay,
my
good.
first game since the Rams were in St. Louis. Looks like the weather's a little bit rougher this week, but I had a good time.
That's
it
good.
was nice. James?
I have a question about this weekend's forecast, Chris.
Yes,
For those of
sir.
us thinking about going to the mountains to look at fall colors, will we
Ooh.
be impacted by the nor'easter offshore?
First off, that is a great question, because today in the mountains, and here I actually had a graphic that I built in this in a tiny window, so just bear with me. Today's forecast is actually one of the better that we have across the Carolinas, because up in the mountains, sorry.
I love how you're really leaning in to the computer screen.
So
to
yeah,
get
you know,
your-
you can't see it. It's a weird shot when it comes here. But my grandfather mountain, I'm getting photos from Leslie Restivo pretty much every day. They're at their peak on top of Grandfather Mountain. So Destiny Richards actually asked me, I was like, how's it going to be? It will be breezy just because there's a lot of wind moving in the atmosphere around here. But you're looking at sunshine more of a cloudy to a mostly cloudy day that we have here. So that's great. But the best news I have for you, James, is that I think that rain doesn't even really reach our friends in the mountains overall. I think it's mainly going to stay further off towards the east. So if you're going on, what day are you going?
Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow? Okay, that's what I would recommend in here. Just focus in on the mountains here.
Okay.
So this
Watching.
is Saturday morning. Roll tape. You're seeing that rain still further off towards the east. At this point, I think that you start to see it get close, but then we're at midnight. You're not going to be looking at leaves at midnight, so then you're good. But now for Sunday, that's where things change. So yeah, if you are going to go, I definitely would pick Saturday because this is in the morning. You're starting to see rain really pass. And the winds are also going to be gusty up to 30 miles per hour here. I'm not getting on that bridge. I'm just letting you know. You cannot pay me enough to get on that bridge even at 30 miles per hour. So likely they might be shutting it down if you want to go out on the bridge because I think that there has to be a wind range that they don't let people go up there, I'd assume. But so yeah, Saturday is definitely the one that I would choose.
You two both having fun fall plans this weekend.
I know.
Yeah, you look
You
at
want
you.
to go look at leaves?
Yeah, well, see, I'm doing apples, you're doing leaves, and then you can do apples the next week, and then I'll do leaves. We'll do a trade-off.
And I'm working tomorrow, so one of y'all can take that next week as well.
Sorry.
Okay. I actually ran into somebody, and they were telling me that if you don't want to go to the mountains, and I've always been terrified to say this, so correct me if I'm wrong, Uwharrie National Forest, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Uwharrie National Forest, since they do have some higher elevations, some mountains over there, that it peaks late October to early November, and it's more of an hour drive away.
Right, because that's east of here?
Yeah, east of here. So if you want to kind of go for a beta version of the Blue Ridge Parkway, I heard that that's also a wonderful substitute if you don't want to, and it's not as much traffic. So just kind of like a little outsider tip there.
There we go. All right, Chris, thank you. Always giving us the extensive forecast.
Almost too much, but thank you for spending 25 minutes with me.
We kept asking you questions, to be fair, so that's
That is true. That is
We
true.
kept
You baited
here.
me.
I know. But thank you for joining us. We appreciate you and your, James, what was that? Oh.
This is my sign for commercial break.
Oh, okay. We're going to take a commercial break.
All right, hold on one sec. I have more to talk about. Wait, no.
Wait, no, we have more.
No, wait, no, don't go. Just kidding. We'll be right back after this break.
All right, we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us. right, welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Julie Kay. We are approaching 9:30. James, I know we have the stock market about to open and those bells ringing. We always love the bells. And we also had 30 minutes of weather, so thank you to Chris again.
Yes, indeed, Julie, and we'll be checking the weather throughout the day here in Live Weather Impact as that coastal storm continues to develop. But as Julie, as you mentioned, we do have two of the big markets getting ready to open, NASDAQ on your left and the New York Stock Exchange on the right-hand side of your screen, and they will be ringing their opening bells here to start the Friday day of trading.
You know what, James, and we've talked about this, as I've been doing Live Impact News and really seeing the patterns here, I really didn't know they did this every day.
Every day,
Every
markets
day.
open at 9:30. They'll close at 4, barring any holidays. I believe Monday is a bank holiday.
Oh,
Good
for them.
Yeah, and so we'll see the futures, which kind of give us an indication of how the markets might do today, are up. Markets
NASDAQ.
closed pretty flat yesterday, so we'll see.
Interesting. There's a baby at the NASDAQ. That's exciting.
I know, and there's music. I did not know that they played epic music over there at the NASDAQ, so
We probably can't play that, otherwise we'll get
I'm turning it down now just in case.
just in case.
Just in case. But I know the sound from the New York Stock Exchange is always nice too. You can always hear how loud everything is, and here.
Yeah, we'll take a listen in when that gets there, but we've got a lot of things to get to today other than, NASDAQ is outing. Do you do confetti every morning too?
You know,
Is it just a good day?
I think it's a good day. I do think this is how the NASDAQ does it on the left, and then the New York Stock Exchange on the right has that big bell, and they're going to do a big gavel swing here in a moment to mark, I think, the opening, or at least they gavel at the end of the day. And just, again, looking at the opening numbers here, there's the opening bell on the New York Stock Exchange there on the right-hand side of your screen.
Oh, there it goes.
Dow futures are up 900 points, the S&P futures are up 5, and the NASDAQ futures are up about 15.
Well, you know what? I like the confetti more than the bell. I gotta give it to NASDAQ this morning. Not that anybody asked me, but personally, big fan of that.
There you go.
I know we have some other headlines to get to, so that is open for the morning, really starting the day there. But some more weather. I know that Chris and I talked, and James as well, for about 30 minutes about some really big stories going on here. But we also did an interview last night, I believe, on Live Impact Weather with Justin Michaels from the Weather Channel. So let's get to that, James.
The growing wind over the next couple of days, it's still going to be northeast. It's going to be because of a nor'easter, this low pressure that we're expecting to develop on the coast, and we're probably going to see some significant impacts on the coast and maybe even some rain back our way. But the area that's been hit hard by storms really all summer long and now into the fall, and this one could bring some serious impacts, will be the Outer Banks. And joining us now live from the Outer Banks in Buxton is the Weather Channel senior national correspondent Justin Michaels. I know he's been out there all day, and Justin, thank you for joining us. My first question to you, Justin, is you've been out there, and I know you've been out there more than once. I think a lot of folks watching us, and even across the country, don't realize what a rough late summer and early fall it's been on the Outer Banks without even a landfalling tropical system. Talk a little about what you've seen out there and what it's been like so far this summer and fall now without even a hurricane.
Well, Brad and Tim, you talk about that northeasterly flow. I feel it to my back. My back is facing northeast, so it is a consistent and solid and very strong northeasterly flow. With that nor'easter coming to town this weekend, it's going to be even stronger. Now, we have to look back in time. We had Aaron, we had Imelda, we had Umberto, we had another nor'easter, and all of this producing that northeasterly flow, that onshore flow. And what it has done in just a few storms, not a few years, not a few months, but a few storms, is taken away 141 feet-ish, give or take a little bit here and there, but more than 140 feet of beach. So Lauren DeSarmo behind the lens, let's take a look. You can see one of the homes out here, gents. This home is clearly eventually going to fall in. It is truly sinking into the very soft sand underneath of it. Those pilings are eventually going to let go, but just think about 141 more feet of beach before all of these storms started coming to town this summer. That's the reality here. And then if you go back throughout the years, Brad and Tim, we're talking a couple hundred yards of beach and what used to be a massive dune between where we're standing right now and where the water's edge was just 10 years ago. So the amount of land loss is extraordinary. And for people who call this place home, and what they have witnessed with their own eyes. In fact, some of the people say they come out here every day, and every day they don't know what beach may be left. It changes by the day. So it's just happening so rapidly, and for folks who call this place home, it's very, very challenging for them to see what's happening to their home. Guys, back into you.
And Justin, when you're there, are you encountering very many visitors? I know it's not the peak time, it's not summertime, but are there a lot of people visiting the area right now?
Right.
And are they communicating at all of should they stay? Or because Highway 12, we've seen a couple times this summer, it gets closed down for a couple days. So are they ready to stick it out if they stick around, or are they being asked to make any changes?
Yeah, Tim, one thing that people here are keenly aware of, including the temporary visitors, is to pay attention to all those warnings. And if they say Highway 12 is going to be closed down, most people do head out of town. I can tell you it is off season. Here we are in the fall, getting close to, Halloween and all the holidays coming up. So yes, it is dramatically reduced as far as the number of people here. But I will tell you something that really struck me. We were here just last week for Imelda and Umberto, and the pounding this coastline took because of those storms, which were 1,000 or more miles away, right? But still all that energy out in the Atlantic coming inland and pounding this coastline. And when you look up the beach, some of the homes that were there as those storms were pounding are no longer there. And it's amazing just to see how quickly things happen. And they were also just 1 week before Imelda and Umberto came up through and caused all the upheaval here on the coast. And I still can't get my mind around this. So that was last week. Those homes were there. A week before that, so just 2 weeks ago, some of the homes that are here in the water were rented.
Wow.
2 weeks ago.
Wow.
They were safe enough to rent, and now they're condemned. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin, that's amazing because I can't remember. I've been in the Carolinas for 22 years to see 9 homes in 1 week, right? We lost 9 of them last week. I'm not asking you to be a fortune teller here, but just based on what you've seen there, how many homes you think are going to be at risk with this nor'easter coming up?
Right, so we've definitely got our green one right over here that's sinking. I think it's gone a little bit further in the time we've been here for the last 12 hours today. But you've got a couple right here and then a few more up the beach. I mean, we talked to a gentleman earlier today who's a professional surfer, a lifelong resident here, Brett Barley, and he doesn't like to speculate which homes are going to go in because there are some homes that are still standing that everybody said that's the next one. So they try not to get around that whole speculation game. But there are certainly 5 or 6 right along here that are at least the front line and are in the water, especially during high tide and that high tide cycle twice a day. So, I mean, this green one, I don't want to be speculative, but it can't hang on that much longer. I mean, just take a look at the porches on the right side of it and how the entire house looks like it's leaning into the ocean. It's only a amount of time before that footing is gone. And could that northeasterly flow, that nor'easter coming in this weekend, be the death blow for it? It's possible. It certainly is. But maybe it's the next storm after that. You really don't know. And guys, something else that people are really focused on here, in addition to sea rise and climate change, is the fact that there was a jetty that was installed back in the late 1960s by the U.S. Navy. That jetty was made of steel. And over the decades since then, it has been eaten away by the Atlantic. Of course, steel and salt water are not necessarily the best of friends, and it's eaten it away. And ever since that jetty really was taken out, that's when people here say they saw a rapid increase in the number of homes that were destroyed. And to really highlight that, from 1973 to 2017, no homes were lost. None. Wow. And then in 2017 is when that switch was flipped and that jetty was really gone and this beachfront was completely unprotected. And that's when we saw the dramatic decrease in the amount of beach. The average over the years has been 10 to 15 feet a year, but just in the last couple storms, like I said a few moments ago, 141 feet has disappeared from here to the water line. So it just has rapidly accelerated since that jetty disappeared.
I wonder what people's moods are to this. Are people that live there, this is their home, are they resigned to the fact that this is just what's happening, or are they a little defiant, like we got to do something about this? Because it seems to me there's not all that much you can do at this point where we are.
Right, so a gentleman that owns a home, so I've been calling this side of the houses the ones closer to land, not closer to the ocean, as kind of the next line of defense. We talked to a gentleman earlier today, a homeowner here since 1981. His name is Lat Williams, and his plan, he and his wife have purchased a plot of land inland, several blocks and at higher elevation, which, as you know from this coastline, there isn't a lot of elevation, but there are places that are a little higher than others. They've purchased a plot of land there, and their plan, as long as they are working in Mother Nature's timeline here, is to actually lift their home, which is right on the water's edge right now, lift it and move it inland. Will they have the time to do it? That's the question. But they're going to try. So yes, people are doing what they can in some cases to be proactive and try to save their property, whereas others, when you're dealing with homes like this that are fully condemned, remember, still a rental property, yes, but remember, rental properties are where people call their home for a short period of time and make family memories, make friendship memories, make lifetime memories in plot properties like this. So yes, it is a rental property, but we all spend time in them from time to time, and we all remember back on those fabulous times in properties like this. So again, maybe it's not somebody's primary residence, but it's all of our temporary residents occasionally, meaning it does mean a lot to a lot of folks. So it just depends on who you talk to. I think some people are resigned to it, to your initial question. Others are trying to be a little more proactive, like Lat Williams. It just depends on where people are and what they think they can do.
Wow. Well, Justin, I want to give you some time to kind of regroup there, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I think you make a good point about the memories that are lost when these homes go in, because a lot of folks have probably spent some great summer vacations in those homes, and those are second homes for a lot of folks. And I know we'll hear more from you over the next couple of days and into the weekend. Stay safe out there. But once again, thanks for joining us from Buxton, senior correspondent for the Weather Channel, Justin Michaels. Thank you so much, Justin.
Thanks,
You
Justin.
bet, guys.
All right, coming back out here to Live Impact News. Really interesting context there from Brad and from Justin Michaels on the shore last night on the Outer Banks. So we're going to keep paying attention to that throughout the day. Weather, one of the really, really big stories this weekend, especially for those on the eastern side of the state. We are going to get to some more national news now. We have a live feed from outside of Chicago. This is the Broadview Ice Facility. If you've been with me for the past few Fridays, you've seen multiple of these protests. And this live feed is going to keep moving in and out as our crews on the ground there at NBC Chicago are just trying to catch whatever they can. This is a much bigger protest than what I've seen. It has grown substantially over the past few weeks, particularly after a lawsuit alleging that federal agents have been using unnecessary force against protesters. A federal judge granted a temporary restraining order just yesterday in that lawsuit filed Monday. That nonprofit that filed it represents journalists and unions and individual protesters over federal law enforcement tactics. It alleges that agents have shot, gassed, and detained individuals who've been protesting outside this facility for the last few weeks in an unnecessary way. Now, James and I have been paying attention to this feed now this morning for I believe a couple hours now, and we have seen people get detained again. We have not seen necessarily any updates on the status, whether that's an arrest or not, but that is something that we are seeing again this morning. I have not seen any sort of gas or those pepper balls that people are talking about, but as I've said, a really, really big presence here, and we believe that some of these police officers that we're seeing, law enforcement, are local, potentially the sheriff's office or the local Chicago police. So not just ICE here, I believe they've called in some of their local help as well. Something to pay attention to as well, though, is the fact that the National Guard was expected to be in Chicago, but a federal judge in Illinois blocked the deployment of those troops to Chicago. President Trump has been trying to send National Guard to multiple cities across the country. Chicago, I believe, has been the one that has pushed back the most. At the same time, National Guard is expected to be in Memphis starting today. So there's multiple layers here. Chicago been kind of at the forefront of cities pushing back against ICE detainments and a crackdown on immigration. Of course, Governor J.B. Pritzker also kind of leading that charge along with some of these federal judges. So lots happening here. Right now, things seem pretty calm. As you can see, all those officers are just kind of standing around watching people. But that is quite a high volume of officers compared to the protesters. You can't see everybody in frame right now. Of course, the camera zoomed in a little bit. There's quite a few more to the left of the screen. You can see people, they're zooming in now with signs. People are wearing masks, probably because of those incidents prior to where people have been gassed. You can see people wearing gas masks there. You can see it zoomed out a little bit more, and see a bigger crowd here. But yeah, this is a really interesting sight, something we've seen now pretty much every Friday for the last few weeks, and it has just grown and grown. Now multiple federal judges getting involved here, so it'll be interesting to see if this escalates. We're going to take a quick break, but just know that we're going to come back to this scene throughout the day, and if we have any updates, we'll be sure to let you know. Time right now is approaching 9:45. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. It is 9:46, and like I mentioned earlier, multiple live pictures that we're paying attention to, some big national headlines. Of course, I feel like the biggest one over the last couple of weeks has been ICE and immigration crackdowns, particularly in Chicago, and how different cities are handling this. So this is our feed from Broadview, that is right outside Chicago. That is an ICE detention facility, and you can see multiple different groups of law enforcement agents. We were just at the scene where we saw some big white vans heading towards the facility, and we just saw them drive back. Not quite sure who or what they're carrying, but definitely some activity happening here. This shot, I think, is interesting because it shows just how many law enforcement officers are there. They're just standing there. I do think it's important to note, as I mentioned earlier, that a federal judge has granted a temporary restraining order about some of the force that has been used at scenes like this. You can see, I believe that's a sheriff's office, so confirmed. Some local law enforcement agencies there as well, not just federal agents. But these protests have been weekly, and they've gotten very heated. I know that pepper balls have been used. We've seen images of people getting gassed. You can see some of these protesters wearing gas masks, kind of in the fear that might happen again. You can see multiple of them holding up signs that say all sorts of different things at ICE agents. So really interesting scene here. At the same time, the National Guard has been paused. They were supposed to be deployed to Chicago per President Donald Trump, but a federal judge temporarily blocked that from happening in Illinois. It is still happening in other cities, including Memphis. So we're going to keep paying attention to this scene. Again, a very a full scene, but a very calm scene right now. Nothing to the level that we've seen over the past few weeks, but I know everyone's keeping a close eye on this as it has escalated. Previous Fridays, we have seen people get detained to some degree. We do not have any update on that as of this morning, whether that has led to an arrest or just questioning and a detainment. So there have been some moments this morning of more activity, but we're going to keep paying attention and see if that escalates any further. And we'll keep coming back to that. We also want to bring you some news from Washington. This is the view outside the Department of War. That's Pete Hegseth there, our secretary. And he is holding some sort of honor ceremony for the Qatari defense minister. I'm not sure if he's getting started now. Let's take a listen in and see if that's what's happening.
Present! Present! Off!
So you've been listening into Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the Qatari Defense Minister. They had some sort of honor ceremony outside of the Department of War, and now they're going in to have a meeting. So will be interesting to see what comes of that meeting. Of course, the cameras were not inside as of right now, but we will check back in to see if they are later, see if we get updates from that meeting. We're going to take another quick break, but know that we've got a lot more, especially from that Broadview ICE facility in Chicago, that we're going to come back to right after this. Welcome back to Live Impact News. Really, the biggest story this morning has been that protest out of the ICE facility in Broadview. And we're going to get back to that in a little bit, but we do have sound now from the Chicago area pastor who has been at the center of this story. I mentioned a federal judge has intervened in this and the force that these law enforcement officers are using against protesters, which has included pepper balls. And that really went viral after this pastor spoke out and says he was hit with these pepper balls. So let's listen and see what his experience was like, because I know he got very detailed into what that experience was like and how he feels about this overall.
Well, it's a victory that belongs to everyone who lives in the United States of America, and particularly to the brave protesters and demonstrators who've been showing up. And I am so grateful for the work of the ACLU and Lovi and Lovi, who argued this case so well and brought it to this conclusion.
So we are listening in right now to this interview on CNN, and it looks like we don't have the sound of the question that the interviewer is asking. We're going to listen in real quick and see if he keeps speaking in just a second, but Aaron Burnett currently is asking the question. There he goes.
It's categorically false. There were no ICE vehicles attempting to leave the facility, and I was standing to the side in a gesture of prayer and praying verbally for the ICE officers and those detained inside. I find it interesting that this individual believes I flipped them the bird, because theologically, as I've been praying for all of these people, I have been hoping that the Holy Spirit will descend upon them and convert their hearts and minds. And to the extent that the Holy Spirit appears as a bird, perhaps there is spiritual truth to her claim.
All right, we're going to take a break from that since we can't hear the interview questions. But know that we have a lot of other important stories coming up. For example, like I mentioned, that ICE facility that we're going to get back to. We are also waiting for Speaker Mike Johnson to speak very soon. You can see that podium is set up. People are already in the audience, so that should be happening pretty soon here. You can see it's branded as the Democrat shutdown, so of course it's going to be focused on the government shutdown. Know that the Senate is back in session today, so it is possible we get some sort of headway made here. They were in there until 9 p.m. last night, so we will also be checking in with the Senate at some point today. Also at the same time, we've got a press conference that we're waiting for outside of the Abrego Garcia hearing that's happening today. So multiple live events we're waiting on. Going to take a quick break and come back, but know that this is a big national news day, so please stick with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. I'm Julie Kay. It is 10 a.m. on the dot. And as I mentioned before break, got a lot of active press conferences that we are waiting on right now. Neither of them have started quite yet, but there's full scenes here. So we're expecting updates very quickly. Let's start with the scene here at the Free Kilmar, not a protest here, it's a press conference, but you can see all these signs set up as a protest. So this has been a really, really fascinating story, of course. They are hoping for the freedom of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The update is that there's a hearing today. Federal judges in 2 states are considering challenges to the government's treatment of Abrego Garcia, whose mistaken deportation to El Salvador really brought a lot of this opposition to President Donald Trump's handling of immigration, just immigration policy in general, this mass deportation. In Maryland, Abrego Garcia has challenged efforts to redeport him to a third country after the government admitted that a previous order prevents his deportation to his home country of El Salvador. They are now trying to deport him to a southern African country, in that one of those landlocked ones in South Africa, so a very small country, one that he is not from. A U.S. district judge has ordered government officials to testify today, right now, about what steps they've taken to remove Abrego Garcia to this country, any other country. His attorneys have charged that the Republican administration is trying to illegally use the immigration system to punish him after this kind of embarrassment over this mistaken deportation. Of course, what we know, no politician likes to admit wrongdoing. And so this has kind of now become a very politicized back and forth about not just this man at the center of this, whether he was here legally or not. This has really become about mass deportation efforts as a whole. So that's why this has gotten so much attention. I think they might be chanting right now if we want to take a listen and hear what they're saying.
Justicia. 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 Justicia.
Now we are gonna do it in English. We're gonna say, what do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
Now we're gonna say, when I say, what do we want? We're gonna say, justice. No, due process.
There you go.
What do we want?
Due process.
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 When?
Now.
When?
Now.
When?
Now. Now.
Yeah, you've been listening to that live scene from Greenbelt, Maryland, where they are waiting for that evidentiary hearing in the Kilmar Abrego case. You can hear them saying, free Kilmar, when do we want? Now. Of course, Abrego Garcia did win his initial lawsuit over the Trump administration over his mistaken deportation to his home country of El Salvador. But there is now investigation into what do we do now? And that is, as I mentioned, a really big piece of this just mass deportation debate in politics in general. So we're going to wait to see if we get some speakers as they continue to chant for a bit. Usually in my experience that this kind of chanting, this scene here means that something is happening soon. But speaking of soon, I know that we have some people walking into the speaker, Mike Johnson. There he is. Press conference amid this government shutdown. Let's take a listen in and see what he has to say about the government shutdown.
Day 10 of the Democrat government shutdown. We're not in a good mood here in the Capitol. It's a somber day. Today marks the first day federal workers across America will receive a partial paycheck thanks to Democrats' obstruction to the system here. This is the last paycheck that 700,000 federal workers will see until Washington Democrats decide to do their job and reopen the government. Starting next week, American service members, many of whom live paycheck to paycheck, are going to miss a full paycheck. If Democrats don't end this shutdown by Monday, then that October 15th date will pass us by. You've got millions of American families who will now have to figure out how to make their mortgage, how to cover their rent, pay the car note, keep food on the table, because Democrats, Chuck Schumer, and his colleagues in the Senate are here playing games. Republicans have voted over and over to end this madness and reopen the federal government. We did our job. By way of reminder, the House passed a clean, nonpartisan CR 3 weeks ago today to keep the government funded and, by extension, to pay our troops and TSA agents and Border Patrol agents and air traffic controllers and the rest of our federal workforce. We had that vote 3 weeks ago. And since then, Senate Democrats have voted repeatedly to keep the government closed. In the Senate, they have now voted 7 times to block paychecks for 2 million federal civilian workers and 1.3 million active duty military men and women. Now, I want to be very specific so that everybody in America can clearly cut through the obstruction and understand exactly who is to blame for this chaos. In fact, would you bring that chart just real quick? I just want to point this out. Let's just make clear. This is the votes to pay troops and federal workers, okay? This is the number of times that the vote has been done. September 10th, the GOP in the House voted to pay the troops and pay all these federal workers. The Senate did it on September 19th.
Hey, just popping back in here to say that we know that that feed sounds a little bit rough. That is on their end, and we're working to get that fixed. Hopefully, they notice soon and get that fixed for us. While we wait for that to happen, and we want to get back to Speaker Johnson as quickly as we can, we're going to head back to that Kilmar Abrigo Garcia press conference while we are waiting for updates from that evidentiary hearing. Let's take a listen in there.
To Ghana will just deport him to El Salvador. In fact, that is exactly what has happened to other individuals who the U.S. government deported to Ghana in recent weeks. Shame. This is just another attempt by the government to punish Kilmar, to pick another country, another random country, to try to send him to where he will not be protected. We see the cruel, dirty game that the government is playing, and the judge will see it too.
Yes.
Now, I know that we are all tired of the government's dirty games and delay tactics. We're tired. It has been 7 months. 7 months of the U.S. government playing with Kilmer's life, playing with the lives of his wife and children. I honestly did not think that we would still be having this fight 7 months later. But y'all, we cannot give up. That's right. We cannot give up the fight. There is too much on the line. There is too much on the line. Our freedoms are on the line. The freedoms of our children, the freedoms of our children's children are on the line. We cannot give up. And we have come too far, and we have made too much progress to give up. That's right. We are not giving up now. Remember, let's go back in time a little bit. Remember when they said Kilmer would never again step foot on U.S. soil. Remember that? Remember that? And here he is back on U.S. soil. Remember when they said that Kilmer would never again walk a free man in the United States. Remember that? Yes. Kilmer walked a free man. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Justice for Kilmer. Kilmer went and got a haircut. He went and got a Subway sandwich. He was a free man. Yes. It happened once, and we can make it happen again. Right here, we will make it happen again. That's right. How? That's right. We will keep up the hope, and we will keep up our movement. We will make it happen again. Kilmer will walk a free man again. So let's send a message loud and clear to Attorney General Bondi, Secretary Kristi Noem, and President Trump. Kilmer. That's right. We will not back down. We will keep fighting. We will rise up. We will stand tall. We will fight back, and we will win. That's right. Due process will win. That's right. The Constitution will win. And justice will prevail for Kilmar and for all in our community that the government is trying to silence and erase. Justice will prevail.
Just wanted to hop in here. We're going to keep going with this press conference outside of Kilmar Abrego Garcia's hearing, but just wanted to let you know that Speaker Mike Johnson's audio is fixed. We do have it streaming in full on our secondary channel if you want to listen to that only.
We are all Kilmar. We are all Kilmar. So to get us started, please welcome Reverend Dr. Robert Turner with Empowerment Temple to lead us in prayer. Reverend, please come on up.
Truly honored to be here. Let us pray. Almighty and eternal Lord, we call upon your name as you watch over us. We call upon your name for Kilmar. We ask, dear Lord, that you bless him to be as you made him, free. Bless him, oh God, to leave this place, to go home. God, we ask for favor from the judge. We pray for power for these protesters, that you strengthen their voices, that you strengthen their hands, their feet, that they shout and make their voices known. Because, God, they can shut down the government, but they can't shut down you.
Amen.
They can't not shut down your power, and they can never shut down your truth. And your truth will reign. He is innocent, has been innocent, but has been mistreated. And we read and we know that you stand on the side of the oppressed. Todos son Kilmar. We thank you, we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Reverend Turner, for those words. Now, I know some of you may have walked in recently, so I just want to remind you. For those of you who have not already, please make sure Secretary Noem hears from you directly. She needs to see Kilmer's face in her mailbox. She needs to read your message in your handwriting. Sign a postcard to the secretary urging her to free Kilmar once and for all. Our dear Ninfa is holding up the postcards right there. When you have a moment, please go and write a message, sign a postcard. We need to flood her mailbox with messages of doing the right thing and free Kilmar. That's right. I would like to welcome Delegate Nicole Williams, Chair of the Prince George's delegation, to share a few words with us. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Delegate.
Thank you so much. I also want to invite up Delegate Bernice Miracle North, is also with us from Montgomery County. We're both attorneys, and we both took an oath to the United States Constitution, to the Constitution of the state of Maryland, when we became members of the bar, when we became officers of the court. And to see what is going on today, when people are elected officials ignoring our Constitution, ignoring the laws of this land, ignoring due process, justice for all. It is an abomination to sit there as the leader of the free world and say you are not going to adhere to the laws of the free world. So we're here to tell the federal administration to set Kilmar free.
That's right, set him free. Free Kilmar.
Free Kilmar. He is being used as a political pawn for this administration, and it needs to stop, and it needs to end today. You are messing with people's lives, with people's families, with people's children, with people's fathers. God's children. You say you're a man of God? Then think about what you are doing in his image. Okay, there's only but so much we can do on the state level. But we are fighting every single day here in the state of Maryland to try to bring equality and justice for all.
Thank you.
Last session, I introduced, Bernice was a co-sponsor of legislation that we had in Maryland to end 287G agreements. We're going to be bringing that back again. We are going to be working on legislation with regards to masking by law enforcement officers. We need to start treating everyone, I don't care where you're from, in a humane and decent way. And that's what we are going to be fighting for every single day until Kilmar is free and Kilmar comes home, because this is the country of the land of the free and the home of the brave. And so stop using Kilmar for your own political gain. Bring Kilmar home. Thank you.
Bring Kilmar home. 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 Bring Kilmar home.
Bring Kilmar home. Bring Kilmar home. Bring Kilmar home.
Thank you so much to our lawmakers who are making clear that they stand not only with Kilmar, but with our entire immigrant community. You see, if we allow the government to get away with abducting a father off the street and then caging him for daring to exercise his rights to fight back, we are all doomed. None of us is safe. We cannot let it stand, and we will use every tool at our disposal, including legislation, to make sure that we are all protected. So thank you to our legislators who continue to stand with us. Now, I would like to call on Reverend Leslie Crowland from St. Albans to please close us out in prayer.
Let us pray. Eternal Father, Spirit, and Word, we give thanks for this new day and for this gathering of family, friends, and counselors who accompany Kilmar Abrego Garcia on this journey for justice. God, you led your people through the wilderness in stages, in a pillar of cloud by day and by night a pillar of fire. In your light, may all people see light. In your straight path, may we walk tall with quiet confidence and fortitude in pursuit of peace and justice, and not stumble. Open our hearts, ears, and eyes to recognize you in the face of every person we meet. This morning, as we approach another stage of this journey, we ask that by the might of your Spirit, give Abrego, his family, his friends, and his legal team wisdom, strength, and courage to obtain justice and truth in this and every stage of the journey. Padre Eterno, Espíritu y Palabra, damos gracias por este nuevo día y por esta reunión de familiares, amigos y consejeros que acompañan a Kilmar Abrego Garcia en este camino hacia la justicia. Guiaste a tu pueblo por el desierto, en tapas, en una columna de nube de día y en una columna de fuego de noche. Que en tu luz todos vean la luz. En tu camino recto que caminamos erguidos con tranquila confianza y fortaleza en busca de la paz y la justicia, sin tropezar. abre nuestros corazones, oídos y ojos para reconocerte el resto de cada persona que encontremos. Esta mañana, al acercarnos a otra etapa de este camino, pedimos que, por el poder de tu Espíritu, concedas a Abrego y su familia, amigos y su equipo lego sabiduría, fuerza y valentía para obtener justicia y verdad en cada etapa del camino. Amén.
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Crowland. Look, we had a short program today because I know we are all eager to get inside that courtroom and see and hear what happens today. So it is time for us to go inside and hear what excuses the government has this time and to see what the judge does with that. Today might be the day that Judge Zinnes finally orders that Kilmar be set free. No more excuses. Today might be the day. We are hopeful. But remember, no matter what happens in that courtroom, our fight continues. During those few hours that Kilmar was a free man, on August 25th, that morning, in Baltimore, he spoke to us. Remember that? Yes. And we made a promise to him that we would not stop fighting, that we would continue fighting. We made that promise to him. So no matter what happens in that courtroom, we do not stop fighting until Kilmar is free and with his family where he should be. That's right. Thank you all.
You've been listening in to a press conference outside of the evidentiary hearing for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was wrongfully sent to El Salvador, and he won that lawsuit so far, but still working to be fully free. So hoping to get some updates on that today. We also are listening in to Speaker Mike Johnson talking about the government shutdown. That is streaming on our secondary channel right now if you want to listen into that. So as I've mentioned throughout the day, lots of national headlines that we're following, so gotta pay close attention today. We'll get back at some point to that ICE facility in Broadview right outside Chicago. We're going to take a quick break for now and see what else is happening live. Stick with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. We are approaching 10:30. As I mentioned, multiple live events happening nationally right now, and we took a quick break from Speaker Johnson because of his audio issues. That seems to be back up and running just smoothly, so let's take a listen in now 9 days into the government shutdown, see what he has to say.
Party stands for paying the troops. The Democrats are the ones that are demonstrating over and over and over now 8 times that they don't want troops to be paid. This could not be any simpler than it is. Look at the...
Xcel Energy Services is on the line to lose $7 million if this funding is rescinded. What conversations have you had with the White House about this, and what is your expectation for this funding? Is it truly gone, or is there some way to get it back?
Well, this is going to affect the Speaker, this is going to affect the Leader, this is going to affect our Chairman, Representative Stile, and all of our members. Literally, this could end today. If Chuck Schumer and Democrats would reopen the government, this wouldn't be an issue. And what's happened is the White House has to make some very serious and difficult decisions as to what's essential and what's not. If you want to end it, Chuck Schumer, reopen the government.
So, sir, your understanding is the White House will continue with that funding when the government reopens?
I would suggest that you call Tina Smith and ask her why she wants to keep the government shut down and put all this at risk.
Is there a breaking point, like 2 paychecks missed, 3 paychecks, 4 paychecks, where you all change your strategy and say we're going to bring House Republicans back and negotiate before the government's reopened?
I would like you to ask that identical question to Chuck Schumer. We have done the work in the House. We are awaiting them to do theirs. This is a 2-body, 2-chamber legislative body. Okay? The House did its work. The House and Senate Republicans have repeatedly affirmed that. You saw the chart. 8 times now, they have voted to get the government open and get troops paid and federal civilian workers paid. Democrats have dug their heels in and said, no, 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 over and over. They're the ones blocking the checks, not Republicans. All these questions should be directed to them and not to us. That is how this works. Thank you all for being here.
All right, again, you were listening into Speaker Mike Johnson there discussing the government shutdown, what he calls the Democrat shutdown. The House is not in session right now. They are the ones that passed this spending bill that the Senate is not passing right now. Senate Democrats are still holding out 9 days into the shutdown over health care subsidies, the Affordable Care Act subsidies. That is the big sticking point here. Now, Senate is going to go back in session in the next hour or so. Yesterday, they were working until 9 p.m. Still with no resolution. So we'll get back to that at some point to see if we have some updates. We want to get back to closer to home, though. We have some exciting news. Our Larry Sprinkle is here after winning a very special award. It's the Steve Labor Leadership Award that recognizes people for opening doors in the community. First of all, congratulations, Larry.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a nice honor, and it was at a big event they had up at Trane, T-R-A-N-E, Trane headquarters. You think of air conditioning, they have a huge corporate center up in Davidson, and they had a conference there yesterday, and it was at that conference, which was really about inclusion in the workplace for those with disabilities, and there are so many, it's almost so many to describe, but the event included people who were there as advocates. There were people who were in management, people who were there to represent different organizations. It was a big conference that they had, and part of that was being given this award right here. So
oh, you have it. That's awesome.
There you go. But yeah, it was a nice honor. Very, very humbling experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, just a really special award, I'm sure, to get. You've been with us at WCNC for such a long time and a part of the Charlotte community. So to get an award like this, I know that you've been honored with things before, but for this one in particular, it was a nice honor. A lot of people ask about you've been involved with all these organizations, and it's a story I don't share that often, but I certainly did yesterday. Is that from the time I was able to remember anything, probably from the time I was about 3 or 4 years old, my grandfather, who was a farmer, suffered a huge impairment to his body, lost a limb, and was disabled the entire time that I knew him, but it never stopped him. He kept farming. He worked on a farm sometimes just using his hands. He could swim. He could fish. He could do everything that able-bodied people can do
without having all 4 limbs, and he was critically injured in that. So from the time I was a little kid, I grew up with someone who had a disability that I overlooked because they went beyond that. And on that farm where my grandfather had that was a family, and they had 2 sons. Both were mentally challenged. Both had severe disabilities. One, who was 20 years old, had the mind of a 4-year-old, my age. So he was my friend. So I grew up with someone who had another type of disability. So my entire life has been around that. So it's just almost like giving back to the community. And then obviously something happened to me about 9 years ago where I became one of those and was in a terrible crash on 485 and had to learn to walk again. Yeah. I was in Carol's Rehabilitation Hospital for about 5 months without the ability to walk, with some really terrible injuries. And so to be in that situation is to learn what it's like to have a disability. So it was an education and a humbling experience.
And an inspirational story,
Yeah,
I'm sure,
yeah.
for everyone that knows you, and I'm sure that helps you tell a lot of these inspirational community stories here for us at WCNC, and I'm sure that impacts how you tell those stories.
It does. I mean, it's something. I don't go around like, hey, let me tell you what happened, and because it was pretty serious, and as I said, it stopped me literally for months. But it was, in a way, it was this is a reality check. You are now experiencing something that some people have their entire life. And to be in a wheelchair, to sit there on, and to look at people on that level, and not, you're standing over somebody, or someone is walking and running, and I remember sitting at the rehab hospital, sitting out front and watching people walk, and thinking, well, gosh, I forgot how to do that. And that's the truth. There's a disconnect between the mind and the physicality of walking. So I literally had to physically learn to do that again. So, as I said, it was a pretty humbling, mind-blowing experience.
I know that
Yeah.
it's been many years since then, but if you could think back to it, was there something that helped you through that process of learning to walk again? Anything in particular?
So many things. It was, first of all, it was the people at Caroline's Rehabilitation Hospital, and so many, from the surgeons who put me back together again, those people, to the whole group at Caroline's Rehab, Dr. Raj, who was an inspiration to me. He was there every day for me. And then just those who were who really work with me on the physicality of being able to use your body to perform again. Yeah. And then in that mind-body disconnect, all those people, and then just other patients who were there, being with them, and all with different types of physical impairments, from injuries to birth defects and things like that. And just being among those people was an education in itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that community is always so helpful in moments like that. Not to put you on the spot, but we do have your acceptance speech. And so we're going to take a listen in real quick, James, I think.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you very much. When you pose for still pictures together, you feel so phony and fake when you're... I'm honored to be here today and to thank you, Pat, thank you, the organization. To accept this award, it's dear to me because my entire life has been associated in some form, some way with those with disabilities, starting when I was old enough to remember. My grandfather, who was a farmer, had a horrendous accident on his farm. And so my memories of my grandfather, he was disabled, but he wasn't. Nothing stopped him. He had his leg amputated as high up as it could be. Never stopped him from being a farmer, never stopped him from swimming, never stopped him from playing practical jokes, which I inherited that ability. never complained, never said, woe is me. So I grew up from the time I could remember that, oh yeah, maybe he didn't have a leg, maybe he wasn't able to use all of his limbs, but he did. He was a brilliant man. He was a wonderful inspiration to so many people. And on the farm that he had was a family that worked for him. They had 2 children. Both were, in their own way, disabled. They both had intellectual disabilities. One, when he was the age of 20, had the mind of a 4-year-old. I was a 4-year-old, so he was my best friend. So I grew up that these are people just like me. Maybe they're different, but they're differently able. They all have something to offer. So it's been kind of my life project to try to give back to the community and be a part of it, and to have been there at one point. So thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to speak a few minutes here today. I thank you, Pat, and thanks to the organization. Thank you very much.
And Larry, we were just talking about this organization and this event as a whole that is, really important to the community. What can you tell us about Disability?
Yeah, Disability North Carolina, the sponsoring agency for this event. And it really is an organization centered on focusing on inclusion. And when you talk about disabilities, there are so many. I met several people who, in a conversation and being with them, you would never know that they had a disability. One of those I spoke with was sight impaired, but you would never know it by looking at them, and there's no evidence of that. But each person, regardless of disability, they has something to give, and I think companies are realizing that this is a huge community in this country, and they have a positive outlook on life. They're motivated. They're hard workers, and there's a place for those with any number of disabilities in the workforce. And many of those people who have various disabilities are not just workers; they also are in management as well. So it really covers all levels of a business operation.
Absolutely. And I know that this is so important to have those resources and to bring attention to them. Any other speakers or people that you met that you thought were really special?
I mean, there were so many people there. Nate Sally, now the name may or may not ring a bell, but Nate Sally was a keynote speaker. Nate grew up in Florida, was an athlete, played high school football, was a champion in that, and then he got the scholarship to this place in Ohio called The Ohio State.
Oh, I've heard of that, I guess.
Yeah. he was on the played with the Buckeyes and went to championship games with them, was a star athlete, and then went to the NFL and played for the Panthers for 4 years, and had a successful career in football. Suffered an injury and left football, and he started an organization that really is I would say a big advocate for people with disabilities, people who are challenged, and Nate was the keynote speaker. One of these people who is, I would say, when you talk about motivating, he's a real motivator. Got everybody fired up, being an athlete. And so I think Nate's speech yesterday was something that exemplifies that, we have so many people in this community from all walks of life. And here he was, a champion athlete, and now he's working really on a day-to-day basis, especially with blue-collar management, in kind of advocating for them to show them that you can be a great influence on everyone, and that inclusion is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that hearing those personal stories and having a personal story yourself makes an award like this all the more special. So congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Larry. Really special news over there. So thank you again to Larry. We're going to take a quick break and get back to some of our national and local headlines in about 2 minutes. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. I'm Julie Kay here. One of the biggest stories, if not the biggest story that we're following this morning, other than the government shutdown, is that protest at a facility, an ICE detention facility in Broadview, that's outside of Chicago. We now have some aerial shots of this protest. You can see how big it is, especially if you've been with us for the last few Fridays now. It has been a recurring protest. This pretty much happens every Friday. And this is, well, you're losing the shot now and just what we're following this van to see where they're going. But this protest, I can attest, it's bigger than it has been in previous weeks. Right now, we've gotten away from the protest a bit and are looking at this van entering the facility. We've seen quite a few go in and out. The big story, though, is that the federal government has, or a federal judge has intervened because of a pastor who went viral for a video of him being shot by pepper balls, which we heard from him earlier in the show in his interview with CNN. Other things too, you've seen protesters be gassed. We don't have that. You can see some of those officers right now. And now, granted, some of these are local law enforcement. We've seen sheriff's officers, or sheriff's deputies, excuse me. Some of them are carrying batons and things like that. We have seen earlier in the day some protesters get detained. We don't have an update on if that led to some sort of arrest or anything. Right now, it seems the protest is rather calm, but know that when these things do escalate, as they have in the past couple of weeks, they escalate quickly. Will be interesting, though, because this is the first one with that new intervention from a federal judge. At the same time, National Guard was supposed to be coming to Chicago, and a different federal judge in Illinois blocked that from happening for 2 weeks. So Chicago probably being the most pushing back on federal immigration efforts, especially President Donald Trump focusing a lot on Chicago in his effort to crack down on immigration. So we're going to keep paying attention to this, but these aerial views are just a really interesting look at what's happening at this facility. And you can see that there's some officers here, but as I mentioned, most of them are by those protesters past the front, or before the front gate. You can see an armored vehicle there and some other different types of officers and law enforcement walking around. So we'll get back to this soon, but this is definitely an interesting view of what we've got going on here. We're also going to take it to the, oh, there you can see it again. Wow, that's quite a scene. As I mentioned earlier, the government shutdown still in its 9th day now. So we've gone over a week with no resolution. Taking a live look at the White House there. We are waiting to hear later today from President Donald Trump. I believe that's not happening till 5. Melania Trump, First Lady, is also expected to speak at some point today. We've heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson about the government shutdown. And of course, this doesn't just impact the federal government, it impacts state and local jurisdictions as well. New York governor, I believe, was speaking on the impacts of this. So let's take a listen into that. I know that this is also impacting NYPD. So let's see what they have to say about that.
The MTA, as we monitor through over 15,000 cameras, activities on the MTA. It's one way we keep our riders safe and our employees safe. I want to thank Jana Lieber, the chair and CEO of the MTA, for his stewardship of this incredible organization, the lifeblood of our region, but also during these more difficult times when funding that we used to count on has been stripped away. Also very fortunate to have the greatest police commissioner in our nation, and that is Jessica Tisch, who's really just stepped into a role that was so essential when we started seeing crime rates that were just absolutely unacceptable, and has really done a masterful job in terms of calming down the situation, in terms of his public perception, but also being there with an incredible team that reports to her to keep us safe every single day. Just want to say a couple things because we look at what's behind us here. As we look at one of our objectives is keeping New Yorkers safe. This is how we do it. We have a bird's eye view of what's happening, and we have a very heavy focus on our subways. We've surged NYPD, working with the city to help cover the cost of overtime over the last couple of years. Deployed officers over on the overnight trains, which is, in large part a reason some of the hotbeds areas where we've seen a lot of crime in the past have declined precipitously. We installed 33,000 cameras. You heard me talk about this. This is my goal just a couple years ago. I wanted it done, and now we have them on every single subway car. And we've added platform barriers and LED lighting. We're going to continue doing that just to brighten up the experience, which gives this sense of more security, but also it's more of a deterrent to would-be wrongdoers as well. And these efforts are starting to pay off. You cannot argue with the fact that this summer, the months of July and August, we saw crimes hit record lows, lowest in recorded history, safest summer on the record in over a decade. But as we know, we'll all say this, one incident is one too many. Just a couple days ago, we had a horrific attack at a subway station in Brooklyn. A reminder that we can never let up when it comes to safety. Now, let's focus not just on what we're doing, but what the federal government is doing to us. And in a stark moment of hypocrisy, the federal government is literally threatening our ability to keep these operations safe. As our ability to protect public transit riders becomes compromised. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is trying her very best to slash $34 million in funds that is essential for security on our subway systems. And this is a person who swore an oath, as we all did, swore an oath to protect Americans, and is truly abandoning that. But I'm going to be very clear on what is happening from Washington. They are defunding the police. Full stop. They cannot argue with the fact that there was funding to help the police, protect our communities, and the federal government without justification, no rationale, other than a punitive gesture to punish blue states like New York. But here New York is very unique. Of the 21 regions that have applied for this funding, the security funding, New York is the only one that's been denied. So this is not hyperbole, this is not exaggerating, this is the reality. We have been singled out. For 20 years, Democrat and Republican administrations have funded these essential dollars. It supports police patrols, security cameras, K-9 units, and cybersecurity measures. It bolsters security along Metro North and the Long Island Railroad as well, two of the busiest rail systems in the entire nation. And now Secretary Noem wants to claw back every penny. And I say this, it's reckless, it's dangerous, and it's illegal. So what we have here is an opportunity to stand up. We are standing up. I've written, I've cajoled, I've asked. Now we're in court literally at 11 a.m. this morning. We are in court to defend our rights. Thank you, Attorney General Tish James. But we shouldn't have to battle this out in court. We truly should not have to be in court over something as basic as providing security for our systems here. And I don't need to repeat this, but clearly Washington doesn't understand that when you're assessing applications for security grants to fight terrorism as well, and you put New York State at the bottom of the list, New York City, the bottom of the list, we are the #1 terror target in America. Not just back to 9/11, but the countless cases that are thwarted by the work of the NYPD and our Joint Terrorism Task Force. Those don't make the headlines, but we are safer because we have invested dollars from the federal government and the city and the state together. That is what they're jeopardizing right now. Our safety has been compromised. So we live to that fear. We do not ever want to see a repeat of it. That sense of anxiety and insecurity still pervades many of our lives. And I just want to ask, Secretary Noem, how do you weaponize the federal government against a place like New York, against federal workers as well? How are you playing political games with our lives, the lives of people who call this place their home? And just last week, this is a trend. Just last week, Secretary Noem attempted to cancel $187 million in counterterrorism grants. I wrote to her, made our arguments, called the president, and soon after our call, I'm very pleased and I thank him, the president reversed course and announced plans to restore the funding. Now, I need that again. I need that help again. We need to get this money restored. We need this right now. And I will say this, I disagree with the president on many, many issues, in fact, most. But there are areas where we should be aligned. And when people say that they're pro-law enforcement, the wearing of the blue, and yet they're willing to defund our police, it's hypocrisy, and it must be called out. But it's not just that. It's critical infrastructure projects, $18 billion, and 15,000 jobs on the line because of the abrupt cancellation of federal dollars for the 2nd Avenue subway and the Gateway Tunnel. And the Gateway Tunnel is not a vanity project. It's a matter of...
All right, we're coming out, just interrupting that for a quick second because I believe we have President Donald Trump on his way to Walter Reed Medical Facility. Let's see, we've got the chopper going here. We'll see if he speaks to reporters. All right, so as I mentioned, we are waiting to see President Donald Trump. We're not sure yet if he's already in the chopper or if he's already headed to Walter Reed, but this is a live feed that we're watching live as you are, so we'll get an update soon. Again, this is a semi-annual physical at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. That is what the White House described it as, so nothing worrying, they say. The visit comes as Trump is preparing, though, to travel to the Middle East on the heels of this potential ceasefire deal that people are saying that he has really helped cinch the deal there in the Israel-Hamas war. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt described it as a routine yearly checkup, as I mentioned. He did have his earlier annual physical in April, so it's potential that this is one of those semi-annual physicals, as I mentioned, the White House is now describing it as. So we're seeing him here walk to the chopper. Now, oftentimes he does speak to reporters. Not sure if that's the plan today, so let's see if he decides to make that choice.
Mr. President.
You can hear reporters yelling at him. He's just waving and keeping walking towards the chopper. So not looking like he's going to stop and talk today. I'm sure they might be asking about that trip to the Middle East and that Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal that we were expecting updates on very much in the near future. As I mentioned earlier, Trump is expected to speak at 5 p.m. tonight after this, what is described as a semi-annual physical medical checkup at Walter Reed. So that might be what that is about. This, though, is notable because in April, Trump was found to be, quote, fully fit to serve as commander-in-chief. That is from a 3-page summary of the exam done by his doctor. And it says he had lost weight and that he continues to live an active lifestyle and continues to contribute significantly to his well-being. So all good news from his last physical. Of course, in July, the White House announced that Trump had recently had a medical checkup after noticing mild swelling in his lower legs. That is a common condition in older adults that causes blood to pool in his veins. So that chronic venous insufficiency that we talked about earlier, the White House labels that as mild, though interesting, of course, in the context of a medical checkup. Again, everything expected to be routine, though reporters were questioning why there would be a need for another checkup after his April checkup. So, as I mentioned, looks like he's not going to be speaking to reporters, but we're seeing all of his other officials there getting into cars and heading to that appointment as well. So we'll see what comes of that. Okay. So still waiting to see that takeoff. Taking a live look at the White House right now.
Yeah, and we have what they call tape playback. This is what you saw just moments ago, Julie, as the president was heading out to this semi-annual medical appointment at Walter Reed, as you mentioned. So this is video playback here of him walking out. As we saw, he didn't stop to take any questions, and the video is just stuttering a little bit here as they roll it back out. As we were talking, we did see one helicopter land on the lawn there at the White House. A second feed of another helicopter and a presidential motorcade. I'm not sure if this is going to be on the receiving end or just another helicopter that might be part of the convoy, but we can see, we have like dual locations happening right now. We also are waiting at the top of the hour for an announcement from the First Lady of the United States. Oh, this is the president now getting off a helicopter. Sometimes what happens in these situations is we don't always see his movements live.
Yeah.
We're kind of seeing it new with you in real time. And so what I think this might be, Julie, is what we saw at the White House might have actually been tape playback.
I see.
And now this might be live outside Walter Reed.
That makes more sense because we were seeing a helicopter on the ground and one come in at the same time. But as you mentioned, multiple feeds happening here. Sometimes with these live events, especially when the president is involved, there's multiple things happening that make
I think sometimes for security reasons, we don't always see the departure live.
Yeah.
We've noticed it before too, like if he's en route, say, to Charlotte for an event, which is not what's happening today, but just previously.
Yep.
Sometimes we see the plane taking off before the helicopter leaves the White House. Sometimes with the order of the feeds and the tapes coming in is just not always sequential.
Makes sense. As you mentioned, though, we are waiting for that update from First Lady Melania Trump. I did pull up. We don't know exactly what's going to be about, but we do know that Amazon announced yesterday that its Melania documentary is coming out in January. So will be interesting to see if that is what that's related to or if it's something entirely different. That, though, will give what they say is an unprecedented access to the 20 days leading up to the 2025 presidential inauguration through her eyes. So we'll have that announcement when we come back. We'll be here after Charlotte today. So stick with us and enjoy our show. It is approaching 11 a.m. We'll be back later.